The Flanagan and Tafoya race, the winner will fill Tina Smith's U.S. Senate seat.
And Northern News Now's Ella Schoberl heard from both candidates today who've now turned their attention to each other and November. Ella?
Yeah, that's right. Both Tafoya and Flanagan won by a large margin in their respective races. Tafoya, a former sports broadcaster and Twin Cities radio host, said she's now moving to politics to focus on fraud in Minnesota. And meanwhile, Flanagan, the state's current lieutenant governor, says she wants to end corruption in Washington. Tafoya won over 50% of votes in the GOP primary out of 9 total candidates. And Flanagan soundly defeated moderate Democrat Angie Craig with nearly 59% of the primary vote. Tafoya said she is bringing her blunt approach to reporting into politics, and one of her top priorities is addressing fraud in the state, and argues that Peggy Flanagan let that fraud happen. Flanagan says she also wants to address fraud along with corporate interests in politics, arguing that Tafoya would be what Flanagan called a, quote, yes, sir, senator to Donald Trump. Both said they want to make Minnesota more affordable.
I think that they saw that I was honest, I was direct. And that I pointed out that we all love Minnesota, and we've been going in the wrong direction at about 100 miles per hour here for quite a while.
After everything that our state has been through, this country, our economy, we deserve better. And I think that folks want senators who are going to be a check on Donald Trump and not enable his continued grift.
Outgoing U.S. Senator Tina Smith endorsed Flanagan ahead of the primary, and the last Republican to represent Minnesota in the U.S. Senate was Norm Coleman, who served from 2003 to 2009. And Flanagan is a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe. If elected, she would become the first Native American woman to serve in the Senate. Live in studio, Ella Schoberl, Northern News Now.